Hey everybody, this is Scott with Endeavor BS live at 5 happy hour. We're in a very special location. This is a very limited setup for the techies in the world. I've just got a little Chromebook through the webcam and a little USB mic with our headphones going on right here. But I'm in such an amazing location here in Evergreen, Colorado. Hey buddy, come on out. What's that? Nobody, you need to go back to your room and take a nap. Thanks. All right, sorry. I thought I had my kids down for a nap. I have the baby monitor right here for the little one, and that was my 4-year-old who just came out and wanted to go sleep in the same room as his year-and-a-half-old sister. That's not going to happen. So I asked him to go back to his room. Anyway, thought I had the kids down for a nap so I could get on live here with you guys. So today, again, very limited setup. It's just me. We're not going to be a full hour and a half today because I'm not that interesting. I'm going to be drinking a couple of beers with you, telling those stories, telling the story of what we're going on out here in Colorado this summer, here in Evergreen. Like I said, I'm here in Evergreen, Colorado. We have this amazing view behind. The resolution and the dynamic range is probably not that good in this webcam. I might do one later this summer and try to figure out how to do that better. But right back there are the deep mountains, if you can see them there. And this here is, let's see, actually over this way, I believe, is Elephant Butte. That had some wildfire on it last summer. But just behind that, if you could get up over or get off to the side a little bit, like up to the right of me, you can actually see Mount Evans, which connects to Mount Quandary, and that is one of the Front Range 14ers or 14,000 foot peaks here in Colorado. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Type in, let me know, and I'm gonna just start cracking open this beer. So here I have the Altura Latin Lager. Let me get it started. Do you want to come say hi, Fitz? All right, come say hi, buddy. But then you got to go right back to your nap, okay? All right, come say hi. Come here. Look. Okay, this is my son Fitzroy. I think he was on here a couple weeks ago with Mommy and Carrie. Do you remember being on YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you got a little snack on your face. Do you want to show everyone your toy that you just got?
It's in here.
Okay. What? Who is that?
It's a lizard.
Oh, uh-oh. Here, let me grab it. Sorry there. What's his name?
I don't know yet.
Oh, well, you got to figure out a good name for him. That's part of the deal of having a pet, buddy.
I don't know.
Have you seen some lizards around here?
Nope.
Yeah, we see some in the rocks all the time, you know? Don't you remember that?
I have.
Yeah, I know. And we saw a fox last night, and we see some mule deer and some elk up here.
It was when I was with you.
There's a chipmunk right there.
When I was with you, I saw a lizard.
You did see a lizard, yeah.
I don't know where with rocks.
Yeah, on the rocks.
We were climbing. I think we were climbing that way, not that way. That way.
Yeah, we were climbing up some of those rocks last summer. So this house out here is my family's house. It belongs to my parents. And we come out several times a year. Fitzroy's been out here multiple times. And we had his very first birthday party out here. And he's going to be 4 in just about a month. And we're going to celebrate his 4th birthday here as well. We are all out here this entire summer until the first week, middle of August or so. I'm going to be going back and forth a few times from here to Columbus. So you'll see me in Columbus, back out here, in Columbus, back out here. But Fitz is really lucky because he and his baby sister get to stay here in Evergreen, Colorado for the entire summer in the beautiful weather, the sunshine, the mountains. Isn't that right, buddy? And your cousins were just out here too, right? Yeah, did you have fun with that and Grammy and Pop Pop?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But hey, buddy, it is nap time. So what's that mean?
Go back to bed.
Okay, so can you do that? Can you go back and...
I don't want to.
Well, you really need to. Okay. All right, buddy. I love you.
I want to just stay on the couch. Please, can I stay on
If
the
you're very
couch?
quiet.
Well,
Okay. Please be very quiet. All right, guys.
this
Sorry
is my
about that.
secret lizard friend.
I know. He is your secret lizard friend. Okay, buddy. I need you to go back. Thanks. I love you. All right. So we're back at it right here in Evergreen. Like I said, I'm going to be out here all summer long. I've got a lot of nice outdoor adventure stuff. We're going to be launching our Outdoor Endeavor channel here later. I've got a few friends coming out. Both the Shill brothers from Shill Brother Outdoors are going to be coming out in middle of July. And a new friend, Bryce Newbold, another YouTuber and big in the backpacking world. I think he's going to be coming out as well. And we're going to be rolling on a section of the Colorado Trail or Continental Divide Trail, I believe the Colorado Trail. And we're probably going to be tackling at least one 14er while we're out here. I'm a big climber. I'm a big hiker. I've been doing that my whole life. And I know the Shills are huge backpackers and hikers. Don't think they've done much 14ering. So it's going to be pretty fun adventure when they get out here. And I'm excited to meet Bryce for the first time and do a little hiking with him as well. Let's get back. I'm going to talk about the beer real quick and then a little bit more about the summer adventures. So the Altura Laden Lager, I figure this is kind of a good time just to tell some stories of the beers that we have. This was the first ever beer. We talk about it from time to time. And when we were first meeting, talking about the concept of the brewery that would become Endeavor Brewing and Spirits, us three co-founders, myself and Cameron, our brewmaster who you've met, and Tyler, who will be on another time, we were all sitting around in Tyler's basement actually brainstorming about different beers to start with. And we noticed that there was a small amount of lagers being done in the craft brewing industry. Because they're harder. It's hard to hide any flaws in a lager. It's very apparent if you have a flaw in your lager. Hey, buddy. All right, you're just hanging out. That's cool. So Fitz might just hang out with us for a while. Do you just want to sit up here and hang out, buddy?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. He's probably going to be the most popular part about this YouTube stream today. Back to the beer. So we were talking about Latin lagers, right? So Mexican lagers were one of the biggest segments and fastest growing segments in macro beer. But craft brewing hadn't really responded to that at all. And a lot of craft brewers weren't and still aren't making lagers. They take longer, so they tie up your tanks a bit. They're harder to brew. It's harder to brew a clean lager. You have to have really good equipment, and you really have to know what you're doing. Flaws in lagers are very apparent typically. And what you'll find, a lot of places have a diacetyl problem, which if you taste beer and you get this slippery sensation and sometimes almost a buttery popcorn, like those jelly bean buttery popcorn ones, you know what I'm talking about? That kind of flavor with the slipperiness in your mouth, it's typically a diacetyl problem. And with a lot of the lighter, delicate beers, a lot of craft brewers out there have problems with diacetyl or other off flavors. Also, a lot of people, hey buddy, I need you to be quiet with that, okay? A lot of people have trouble baking in a lot of flavor to a lager because it's so light and delicate. They tend to be kind of thin and watery without a lot going on. And so they like to throw artificial flavors in there or natural flavor, which is really just a concentrated chemical that you throw in there, or fruits or citrus or other things. And they just get really sloppy and there's no real base to it. Well, fortunately, the equipment that we have is really good. We're one of only a handful of breweries in Central Ohio that have full temperature control of our mash, which doesn't just help with beers like a Hefeweizen, where you're working with large amounts of wheat. It also helps with things like Pilsners and lagers because you can bake in a lot of those flavors through a temperature process in your mash. Now, that gets kind of technical, gets into brewing. If you like that, awesome. If you want to know more, reach out to us. Happy to explain more. So, and our brewmaster also, by the way, got his master's in brewing from Germany. He actually studied over there, really knows his stuff. So we were talking about this lack of lagers in the craft beer industry. And so we sort of started brainstorming these concepts. And Cameron was talking about some of the modern Pilsners he experienced while living over in Germany and studying, and really wanted to make a beer that put a foot into that realm. So I had lived in Chile for 4 years, and
this is the egg.
Oh, that's the egg the lizard came in, everybody. Thanks, Fitz. I lived in Chile for 4 years. I met a maltster from Chile that I wanted to use some of their grain. So our base grain for this beer is malted barley from Patagonia, from the south of Chile. Focusing on a modern Pilsner style, like Cameron had encountered in Europe. And Tyler, our other co-founder, really wanted to use some North American flaked corn, which gives it some sweet corn tortilla flavor in the beer, which is really appropriate for Latin style beer, but also as an historical nod to beer production in the United States. So what happened was, more than a century ago, when immigrants had first arrived,
The lizard's in the egg now.
the lizard is in the egg now. So having a beer conversation with a 4-year-old, pretty fun. Thanks, Fitz. You getting back up here? All right. So nothing like getting YouTube bombed by your 4-year-old. Happens all the time. By the way, I'm out here by myself with my 2 kids right now for the next few days. It's a lot of fun. We're having a great time, but it's also a bit of a handful, as you might be able to tell. So back to the beer. So many years ago, 2 centuries ago, European immigrants were arriving from the old world to the new world. And of course, they wanted to make beer. Now, the climate in Europe is generally a lot more temperate than the United States. And the summers here are hotter and more humid. And they wanted those light, crisp beers like they might have been used to drinking in Europe. The problem is the only barley that they had brought over with them, because barley is not native over here, was sort of a hog feed. And when they made beer out of that, it would be kind of thick and heavy and not really good for a hot day after working the farm, right? So the native crop, corn, that's from the Americas, it's not from Europe. They found that if they took corn and used some corn in the mash.
I just need to, can you open this down?
I can, buddy. Anyway, if they use some corn in the mash, there's your lizard. Have you named him yet?
No.
Okay. That it would lighten up the beer and make it a bit closer to the beers that you're accustomed to drinking, a lighter, crisper beer that was better on a hot day and more appropriate for the climate here in the United States. Yeah, his lizard's on a rock over there. It's pretty cool. I wonder if you can maybe find a real lizard over there, buddy. Do you think you could do that? Go on a lizard hunt? Okay, who knows? Anyway, so corn has played a huge role in the history of North American brewing. Now, there was a time when corn was a lot cheaper, and that's why bourbon actually took foothold as one of the big whiskeys in the United States. Pre-Prohibition, rye was the great American premier whiskey. But when Prohibition was repealed and during that time, corn was a third of the price of rye or barley or wheat. So bourbon was the cheap whiskey that took over. Same thing with a lot of the large American adjunct lagers. They used corn because it was a cheap way to add cheap sugars to make a light, thin beer. So a lot of times corn is frowned on, but the corn we use is actually more expensive than the barley we use. So it is absolutely not a decision of economics. It's a decision of flavor, and it's a decision for the historical context of using some corn within a Latin American beer.
Daddy, they don't want they on rocks and they live on rocks.
What do lizards do on rocks, and why do they live on rocks?
That's their home, and because it's comfortable for them.
It is. It's comfortable for them, and that's their home. And they like the sun because that warms them up, right? Because they're cold-blooded. They're reptiles. Yeah. Fitz, he's learning all about the creatures out here. Okay, so back to the Latin lager. So really it was a synthesis of the 3 of us putting our brains together and trying to come up with a concept for a beer. And this is what was born. And the first thing that most people do if they open up a Corona or a Dos Equis or Modelo or something like that, what do? They add a lime to it. So we didn't want to use a natural flavor or a lime extract or lime juice or anything like that to put into the beer. This is truly a 4-component beer: water, grain, yeast, and hops. That's all we use in this beer. Much like a German Reinheitsgebot. Most of our beers, we do that. If we add anything different, the next beer I'm going to talk about, we add some different things for very specific reasons. So what Cameron did with this stroke of genius is he found a hop variety from New Zealand that has a natural lime zest flavor and aroma to it. So he lightly dry hopped this beer with that hops to build in a lime using natural ingredients, sourced internationally, brewed locally with modern clean techniques. So the result is a full flavored, yet still light, crisp, and refreshing beer.
Dad, can you open this?
Perfect on a sunny day. There you go. Cool. So yeah, a lot of people love this beer. Sometimes in the summertime, people like it with lime too, just to add a little more of that lime zest flavor. Something that's really good with this too is actually a cucumber lime. We do a few infusions around the bar throughout the summer. And yeah, you should just come in, check it out. We have it on draft. We have it in cans throughout Central Ohio. It's a really good beer and has become one of our flagships and very well received. So I highly recommend grabbing one of these Altura Latin lagers. Beautiful day though. So if you have never been out to Colorado, or if you've only been out to Colorado in the summertime, I really recommend, well, actually, don't get out here in the summer. There's no reason to come here. Just saying that because I want it all to myself. There's a lot of people that have been coming out to Colorado, and that makes it a bit crowded, especially in the Front Range, the Denver area, from Colorado Springs up to Fort Collins. And some of the more popular quick access trails on the weekends can get pretty crowded. But the deeper into the mountains you go, and the more during the week you can get out, the fewer people you'll find. It's pretty spectacular. But most of the time when I say to people, hey, you know, Colorado is like a second home to me. I went to university out here. I taught out here. I'm back and forth. I spend a lot of my life, when not working back home in Ohio, out here in Colorado as much as I possibly can. And people always ask, oh, you must be a skier or you must be a snowboarder, right? And my response is, well, I know how to ski and I know how to snowboard, and I appreciate them. In the middle of the rock. Oh, you're right. He's hanging out right there, isn't he? That's really cool. Anyway, so a lot of people ask me about skiing and snowboarding, and that's the first thing they say. And I say, of course, I appreciate skiing. I appreciate snowboarding. I enjoy them. But honestly, I'm not a big fan of ski resorts. I'm not a big fan of the kind of false natural element that occurs there. They kind of remind me of golf courses where, yeah, it can be beautiful, but it's this artificial man-made illusion of what beauty should be that has to be maintained. And it's not real. It's not raw. It's not wilderness. It's not isolation. You know, I want, when I go out to the mountains, when I go to the wilderness, it's to get away from material things. It's to avoid the hustle and the bustle of the daily life, to either be alone or be with a few close friends that are of a similar mindset, right? And ski resorts are lines and people and fashion shows and big money, big investment, and kind of this artificial feeling that I'm not a huge fan of. It's a fun activity though. Hey, buddy, I really need you to be quiet. I really need you to be quiet, buddy. I know. That's really cool though. You can lean back in that lounge chair. There's this lounge chair that Fitzy is leaning back in. It's pretty cute actually. Anywho, so people always ask about skiing, snowboarding, and sure, it's great. And they automatically assume winter. But the summer in Colorado, the summer in the Rockies, for me, it's the place to be. So up here in Evergreen, it's about 10 degrees on average cooler than down in Denver, give or take. Denver is just over 5,000 feet. They call it the Mile High City, officially 5,280 feet, give or take. Evergreen is about 2,000 feet further up the hill. It's about 7,200 feet, give or take, depending on where you are exactly. Up here at the house, I think we're 72, 73, and just a beautiful place. So the average day in the summer is kind of like this. It's 75, 80 degrees, uh, hardly a cloud in the sky. It's a dry heat. There are no real mosquitoes, bugs, or pests. In the evening, it cools down to somewhere in the high 50s to low 60s, but it's again sort of a dry cold. So perfect. You put a fire in the fire pit right here, have a whiskey. You can kind of wear jeans and a long shirt or a t-shirt and shorts during the day or in the evening, and you're kind of okay, maybe a light jacket in the evening. You're right, buddy. He's right there. And it's just an absolutely ideal climate. A lot of times you get an afternoon thunderstorm that comes through, and 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it'll be kind of intense, maybe 45 minutes. This happens in the deep mountains too. So if you're in the mountains, in the deep, be sure to be off of high places in the afternoon. Thunder and lightning is a real risk, a real threat out there. But in this part, it kind of brings some rain and cleans things up and freshens them, and you get that after rain smell of ozone and mountain air. It's just spectacular. It's what all those sprays, the mountain breeze, spring rain, whatever, they try to simulate, but they can't. It's just unbelievable. So weather in Colorado in the summer is unbelievable. It's sunnier here than most places in the United States. It's sunny over 300 some days a year. Look it up. It's absolutely fantastic. And myself being more of a hiker, backpacker, and climber, kind of a mountaineer, more so than rock, I do a lot of scrambling, 14ers, ridge routes, stuff like that. That's kind of what I really get into. And it's just a paradise out here. There's so many really good opportunities. So I'm very excited to be out here this summer, get into some adventures, spending plenty of quality time with the kids, having a couple of Endeavor beers. Maybe we'll talk about some spirits another time. I am going to have a few guests out here occasionally throughout the summer, I hope. I've got a couple of friends that I've done a lot of climbing adventures with throughout the years, back to my college days even. I've got a couple of friends who are musicians that might actually bring up the guitar, maybe a cello if I can get her to, and play a little something. Our setup here isn't perfect, obviously, but we'll see what we can make happen. It's going to be a really fun summer up here. And again, we'll be back and forth a little bit, a couple out here, a couple back in Columbus, doing the whole Endeavor BS. Again, Brewing Spirits, it's the only thing the BS can possibly stand for. No other combination of those two letters exists. And who knows, maybe Fitz will join us for more of these out here. It's going to be fun. Are you giving your lizard a shower, buddy? That's awesome. Yeah, so just a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago now, I drove out here with a dog, and my parents were already out here. And then my wife, 2 kids, my brother and his 2 kids all flew out here together. We picked them at the airport, and we had this whole last week was a crazy time of kids and parents and cousins, and a lot of energy. It was a lot of fun, but lots of energy. My kids slept, and I slept for a full day afterward. Oh, yeah, he is cold. How did he get cold?
I washed him.
Oh, because the water was cold?
Yeah.
That's some of the good mountain water we've been talking about. Yeah. And so they all went back home, and so I'm out here alone with the kids right now. Wife's coming back next week.
Do you know why lizards shower themselves with grass?
Why is that, buddy?
Because they take a shower, and that's why they're wet.
Oh.
That's why.
Okay. I don't know if you guys heard that very well, but it's very informative about the shower habits of lizards, and that's why. Anyway, and then she'll be out next week, so a little bit of relief with the kids, and we'll have some good family time. And again, I'm going to be back in Ohio toward the end of the month. Going to be back for the first crew match in the new stadium, which I am incredibly excited for. And then back out here for my son's birthday at the beginning of July. Show Brothers coming out middle of July for that trip at some point. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun but busy summer, trying to get as much relaxation in here as possible. All right. So I'm going to crack open another beer. I didn't quite finish that one. You know, it's funny. I get asked a lot, being a brewery and distillery owner, oh, you must drink all the time. And not really. I actually probably drink slightly less owning a brewery and distillery than I did before. Generally speaking, I've never really been a quantity drinker. I'm not about huge amounts, getting wasted and that kind of stuff. I've been a quality drinker most of my life, even when I was younger. I lived in Scotland when I was 21 and really got into whiskeys. But again, it's not drinking huge amounts of whiskey. It's about finding the right whiskey and then really enjoying it and chewing on that glass for an hour, opening it up, really seeing how it expands and evolves. I went to school in Boulder, Colorado, and really got into craft beer. And again, it's much more about having a few samples or a pint or two and really getting into them and analyzing them.
Doors.
Yeah.
They're in front of you.
I did. I saw that. Thanks so much. Fitz closed the doors to the house. So he's a really big kid now. He can do a lot of those things himself. It's kind of fun, Fitz, because when you were younger, we had to do all those things for you. But now you can kind of do them all yourself. And you're getting to be such a big kid.
Yeah.
Fitz, I'm gonna have you up here in just a minute, and we're gonna talk about you and I doing our backpacking trip this summer together. Okay?
Got it.
Okay. But let me finish this thought real quick. So people ask me about drinking a lot at the brewery, and they assume that it's funny also because
I might talk about lizards and hiking trips about lizards.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about lizards and hiking trips about lizards. And it's sort of funny that running the business operations of the brewdistillery happens during normal business hours, but our tap room and the bar associated with it are open, afternoons, evenings, after business hours, because people during business hours aren't out imbibing, they're going afterward. But people often assume, oh, you're just hanging out at the bar all night. And no, I'm back home with my kids when our tap room's open most of the time. Typically, if you want to see me, stop by the tap room right about when we open during the week, and I'll probably be in there. Sometimes I grab a pint and I talk to people and hang out a little bit before I go home and hang out with these guys. But
I want to get at the hair.
Oh, he's got his lizard right on top of got the microphone right here, just off screen. That's a good placement, actually. I don't know if you guys can see that or what I'm looking at, not. So he's just right there. That's pretty cute.
Can I? Where are they looking at?
They're right here, buddy. They're looking at us, just right here. You want to step up here? Yeah.
Then that's why you're talking at
Yeah, we're talking. Screen? We're talking right there. See, you're on the screen and I'm on the screen.
Easy.
You are stealing the show. Hey, please stop that. All right. All right, bud. Those are knobs that hold the microphone down.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, so actually,
I'll get down.
You want to get down? Okay. I'm gonna have you back up in a second, and we're gonna talk about that backpacking trip. Anyway, so yeah. What was I talking? What was I even talking about before that? How can you say no to a 4-year-old like that? So yeah, I actually, drink occasionally. I mean, I drink. I'm not afraid of having a little bit or a beer or a little bit of whiskey every day, but it's really rare that I have more than one or two. That's very true. So I'm going to quickly talk about Icelandic Saga, which is the second beer here. And there's a pretty cool story here. I understand that, Fitz. Hey, Fitz, I need to talk for a couple of minutes. Hey, Fitz. All right. So Icelandic Saga, this has become one of our best-selling beers, and sometimes our best-selling beers, one of our best-received beers. It's truly unique. I've never had a beer like it in the U.S. market, and I really encourage you to go out and try it. People who are new to beer typically really like it because it finishes very clean. It's not over the top. It's balanced. And also really experienced craft beer drinkers tend to really like it too and find it interesting because, again, it's unlike anything else that's really out there. Hey, Fitz. Fitz, I really need you to be quiet now, okay? All right. So let me crack this open. Then I'll talk about it. Oh, that sound is so good. Obviously, with any beer, to really experience it, poured into a glass that's appropriate, you get the aromas and the flavors that hit your palate at a better spot. I'm drinking them out of the cans. Yeah, for an everyday thing, just drink it out of the can.
I'm talking about lizards.
And Fitz is talking about lizards, everybody. So Icelandic Saga started kind of as an experiment. So when Fitzroy here, this would have been just about 3 years ago exactly. He was just over 1 in the fall.
Can you just tell him I got a chocolate and there was an egg? That's how I got that lizard.
Do you want to tell them that?
No, you.
Oh, okay. If you didn't hear that, Fitz got a chocolate that inside had an egg, and that's where he got that lizard from.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very important to him right now. Okay, so when Fitz was 1, my wife and I took a trip together. It was the first one we'd really taken. We were big travelers. We've done a lot of things. I've traveled all over the world. Before we got married, we took our Toyota truck and took a year-long road trip and drove up to...
Mommy and Daddy got married.
drove up to Dead Horse, Alaska. Climbed Denali on the way. She did a mountaineering course up there outside of Talkeetna. Drove all the way up the Hall Road to Prudhoe Bay, and then all the way down to the Panama Canal, and then spent a few months down in South America on the Pan American Highway, living out of our truck, and it was fantastic. We did a different thing when Fitz was 1. We decided to take a trip together. And we want to do this again, but we were going to do this last year, but with the pandemic, traveling didn't happen. But the first year was my year to plan the trip. And here was the deal. My wife would receive a packing list and dates. That's it. She had no idea where we were going or what we were going to be doing. Pretty fun, right? And so, of course, I told her sister so her sister could help her pack for fashion. I'm not a fashion guy. I don't get any of that. But what I ended up booking for us was there are direct flights from either Cincinnati or Cleveland to Keflavik, Reykjavik, Iceland. So we got our flights on WOW Airlines. I don't think they're in business anymore, but out of Cincinnati. And we rented a camper van for 8 or 9 days. I think the whole trip was about 10 days. And we drove all the way around the Ring Road in Iceland and camped out. We had one night at a hotel in Reykjavik and a nice dinner out. The thing about Iceland is it's very cheap to get there. The flights are subsidized. It's really cheap to get there. It's really expensive when you're there, largely because of the exchange rate. It's a small, isolated country. It has a pretty strong economy, lots of tourism.
What's the lizard's favorite food? This kind, dirt.
Oh, lizard's favorite food is dirt. We'll probably have to talk about that. That'll be another biology lesson. Anyway, so we drove around the Ring Road in Iceland. Iceland's very expensive when you're there. So one hack is if you fly into Iceland, it's one of the few countries in the world where duty-free works going into the country as well as leaving the country. And there's a lot of tax on alcohol and things like that. So we actually stocked up a couple bottles of liquor and probably a case or case and a half worth of beer for the entire trip going around. And we were at campgrounds and hanging out with people. And whenever I'm out and about, like, again, I'm not a quantity drinker, but I'm a sharer. So if I'm going to have 2 beers, I'm going to bring a 6-pack or 12-pack and pass them out and hang out with people. It's a good way to just open doors and be friendly. So, and I wanted to try a bunch of the different beers there. So we had a variety of beers and some things that we drove around with and we sampled. And even when we went out for our nice dinner in Reykjavik, we went to a place that had a decent craft beer list that were all local. And I tried a few varieties and we split some beers and had a pretty good night of it. So one thing I noticed is that in Iceland, a lot of the beers, most of the beers use a small amount of wheat. And so, mental note, a little bit of wheat. And a lot of them, including a lot of the cuisine, a lot of the flavors that you found over there, had sage and star anise. So I thought those were really interesting. And there was one particular beer called Schnorri that I've never seen in the US. You might be able to get it. That was kind of interesting. It was light and approachable, an ale.
I need water with no lid on it for the gizzard.
Okay, well, you know where your water is with a lid on it. If you go get that, or if you want to put some water in here, can you do that in the sink? Okay. He's gonna go get some water for his lizard. And I thought it was a really interesting beer. And so I came back, and so REI, or local REI, we've got one in Dublin, Ohio, up on Sawmill. We've got one over in New Albany, or no, in Easton area, over near the mall. And we've coordinated a bunch of classes and travel trips and stuff like that. And we host them at Endeavor. We had, oh, hey, I was going to say hi to Mike Jones here, who's saying hi. Thanks, Mike. Just typing back. Perfect. Fitz, I'll tell Fitz too, Mike, when he comes back, and you can say hi to him. Anyway, so we were hosting a class, and we happened to be hosting a class on Iceland, and two of the REI employees had recently taken trips to Iceland. I'd taken a trip, so we had a slideshow panel. It was a full house. You know, our event room was tapped out. 45 to 50 people or so, and all the seats were taken. It was pretty cool. And prior to that, about a month prior to that, I had talked to Cameron, and I said, "Hey, Cam, could you please make a pilot batch beer, an Icelandic themed beer, for this very specific one night REI class event?" It was never intended to be a big beer, never a beer that we'd be making all the time. What's that, bud? Do you have some water in there? Okay. Buddy, can you go to the sink in the bathroom and fill it up?
But it's too dark.
You turn the light on.
But I couldn't because it's too dark. I didn't find it.
It's on the wall on the switch.
But I couldn't reach it because it was too dark.
Well, I can help you in a little while, but I can't help you right now. Okay. All right. All right. Anywho, so my request to Cameron was effectively, "Hey, Cam, let's make a pilot batch," which means it's a little over a single keg. It's about 20 gallons of beer. Good for a private event. We'd have it on tap for a little while till it runs out. And, a keg. So, that's probably about 160 pints of beer or something like that. So my instructions to him were, it doesn't really matter that much. It's not a beer to invest a lot of time into, but I want wheat. Give me 10, 15% wheat in the mash bill. Do whatever you like to make it balanced out. We had talked about doing some hop-free beers. My time in Scotland, there's a thing called a heather beer that instead of hops for bittering and preservation, they use heather.
It's a difference. That's how I found the switch.
Okay.
That's how.
Okay, thanks, buddy. He had to tell me he found the switch, a different switch. I don't know what that means. I'll probably find out, and I might be surprised. It could be fun. Anyway, sorry for the rambling, guys. It's pretty fun. It's a happy hour anyway, just telling stories. So I asked him for that, and we talked about experimenting with some hopless beers, right? And so many people are accustomed to hops, but you don't necessarily have to make beer with hops. And there are a lot of beer styles around the world, especially in parts of the world that don't have hops naturally, that historically produced beers that didn't have hops in them. So we did use a little bit of hops to bitter and balance out the beer, because all the sweetness from the malt and the grain needs to be balanced with some bitterness from the hops. So for the boil, we added a little bit of those, what you call bittering hops in the brewing industry. It's not a bitter beer, it's just balanced. But then instead of flavor and aroma hops, we didn't use any of those. Instead, we used sage and star anise. And now star anise, it's not quite like black licorice, like Brock's black licorice that a lot of people dislike heavily. It's a similar flavor, but a lot more light and mild. It's kind of got a cooling, almost menthol flavor to it too. And the sage is sort of warming and herbal. So this beer is a really complex, interesting malt profile with a little bit of wheat to give it some body and some flavor complexity. But then it finishes with a sage and star anise.
The favorite drink for lizards.
Oh, water is the favorite drink for lizards, not beer. Do lizards drink beer?
No.
No, lizards don't drink beer.
Yes, I put it in there to drink it.
You're right, you did. And so the sage and the star anise, the sage adds sort of a warming herbal quality, and the star anise adds this like cooling sensation too. So it finishes really clean because you don't have the bitterness from those hops and you don't have the lingering sensations. It's really good. And people that like light, crisp beers really like this. And people that like interesting, complex beers really like this. It's generally a crowd pleaser. And a lot of people with a variety of palates really enjoy this beer. Anyway, we made that one batch that one night and it sold out that same night. So we thought, hey, maybe we're onto something. Cameron did a couple of other batches, dialed in the levels of sage and star anise, played around with the grain a little bit to make it even more balanced and approachable. And again, our philosophy at Endeavor is the best beers reward attention. They don't demand your attention. So it's not a sage bomb. It's not a star anise bomb. It's not a single note. It's balanced and it's complex, but it's easy to drink and enjoyable too.
My head is pretty big.
Your head is pretty big? It is, you're right.
It's shaped like an alien. It's shaped like an alien too.
He said his head is pretty big and it's shaped like an alien, and his sister's is also shaped like an alien. I'm not going to disagree with that. Anyway, so that's the story of Icelandic Saga. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite beers. People in the summer say, hey, this would be a great beer in the winter because it's the sage. And then people in the winter say, hey, this would be a great beer in the summer because of the star anise because it's kind of cooling. Year round, it's an amazing beer. It's crushable. Fantastic. Well, I was going to have Fitz come over and talk about our adventures this summer together a little bit, but now he's run off into the back and closed the doors. So I don't know what's happening with him right this second. Oh, man. All right, guys. Well, this has been quite the endeavor and quite the adventure out here. We're about 45 minutes in. I thought maybe I would make it half an hour, if that, because I didn't honestly know what the heck I was going to talk about today. I just figured I'd talk a little about these two beers and maybe a little bit of the reasons why we're out here and this amazing view that's behind me that I'm so blessed to have as a big part of my life right here. When I get the kids to bed tonight, I'm definitely going to be sitting right at this fire pit, probably sipping on a beer, maybe a little bit of whiskey. It's going to be fantastic. If you guys have questions, comments, please reach out to me. Oh, here's Fitz. Hey, Fitz, do you want to come back and talk for a few minutes? I was saying goodbye, but I'm going to do this first, and then I'll wrap up at the end. Hey, buddy. All right, come here, Fitz. Oh, what are you going to do? Do you want to talk to me? Okay, he's getting his lizard some water right now. Oh, yeah, you just dumped the entire glass of water on the lizard, on that rock. Not really going to hurt anything.
That's how.
That's how, buddy. All right, come up here for just a minute, okay? Let's talk to everyone.
That's how water gets in lizard's mouth.
I know. All right, buddy. So we have two big adventures. We've been talking about some, and I want you to tell everyone about them and what you think about them. So adventure one is that we are going to climb a mountain together this summer.
What?
Yeah. Remember we talked about that? That we're going to go climb a mountain
Yes.
together? What do you think about that? What are you most excited for? Are you nervous? Are you scared? Are you excited?
I'm excited because I'm excited of spotting the rope, but I can't splat it. No, but I'm excited.
Okay, well, we're not going to use a rope to climb the mountain this summer.
Oh.
So it's not that kind of climbing a mountain that we're going to do. It's
Wiggy.
yeah, I know. Actually the mountain we're going to climb, I've taken you up before in the backpack, but I think you're ready to do it by yourself.
No.
Okay, I know. It's gonna be really fun. I'll probably take Row in the backpack, and you can hike. Does that sound fun?
Not all by myself.
No, I'm gonna go with you and probably row.
Oh.
Are you excited about that?
But when I'm a grown up, I can do it all by myself.
That's true. Maybe you can take friends and do it yourself too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Oh, hey, can you say hi to Mike, by the way?
Hi.
See? Very cool. Okay, and buddy, let's talk quickly.
I need to get up.
But I wanted to ask you about the next trip that we're gonna do. Remember, we're making a quilt for you?
Yeah.
So we're gonna take our first overnight backpacking trip too. Remember we've talked about that? Hey, please don't.
I need to get up.
All right. So you don't want to talk about that right now?
No.
All right.
Maybe another night, but not right now. But not on this day. Maybe another night though.
Okay, so he might talk to you about that on another time. So I might have to have him come back on and talk about it. Maybe we'll talk about it before or after. So again, I'm gonna have him climb his first mountain, which will be a short hike. Maybe 3 miles total round trip and a few hundred feet of elevation gain. It's a pretty nice little one. It's got a nice view.
Where is it yet?
Well, it's not a lid because it's meant to hold a can, buddy.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a beer koozie can. I was keeping this in it so in the sun it didn't get cold. That's what he's been using to water his lizard. So we're gonna take him up a little mountain, and then I'm also gonna take him on his first overnight backpacking trip, which again is gonna be very, very fun, very low key. Couple miles in, camp overnight, couple miles out. Not a big deal. Gonna be a lot of fun, a lot of marshmallows, a lot of candy, a lot of trail snacks, and make it as fun as possible. So obviously, I'm really excited about bringing him up there. And when my daughter Monroe gets a little older, taking her as well. My dream and my hope is that one of them really like it. So Fitz and Roro, if you're going back and watching this as a teenager, as a young adult, I really hope you're into backpacking and climbing and hiking. And please take your dad, who's going to be older, with you while you're doing your fun adventures, or at least invite him for some of them. I know it's probably a drag. I'll probably be old. My knees will probably be shot, but invite me on a few. Cool?
Hey, Dad, you were about to get figured out.
Yeah, I know. Stuart's still in his crate taking a nap, right? Our dog, because he would be out there being
He's not taking
crazy.
a nap anymore.
Okay, well, I'll go get him just in a minute. So I'm going to say goodbye right now. Is that okay, Fitz? And then we can play. All right. So I'm going to sign off. This has been really fun, guys.
Dad, please can we play it out here?
Of course, we can stay out here and play. We'll let Stu out. We can play out here too. And when Roro wakes up, she can come join us. But Fitz, please be quiet inside because your sister is still sleeping. Okay. All right, guys. That is time. We talked about our Altura Latin Lager today. We talked about our Icelandic saga today. We talked about Evergreen, some of the summer adventures, and obviously you guys got to know Fitz a little bit better. It's been fantastic. I've had a good time. I had no idea how I talked for almost an hour here with no real plan.
Bye.
Bye. Say bye, Fitzy. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you guys next week. We'll have something on.
Dad, I already said bye 3 times.
Okay. Very cool. Bye. I know. What's the date of it? The one I'm really looking forward to here is coming up on June 25th. We are fine to talking